Hello, my friends. Welcome to another episode of the Back to Me podcast. And let me tell you, this week is pretty awesome. And of course, I love all the people that I talk to. This week, I was talking with Holly Bertone, and we are talking about your comeback. Holly Bertone is a midlife comeback coach, and she's a #1 Amazon book bestseller. And she has her own podcast that I was on recently, and I highly recommend you check it out. Her podcast is called Your Comeback Story. And she spent 20 years as a consultant in the FBI. So she's a smart lady, and she found herself struggling and down, and things weren't working the way she wanted. So she created her own comeback, and now she helps other people create their comeback. So have a listen. Let me know what you think, and I can't wait to hear from you soon. Take care. Hi, my friends. Welcome. This is the Back to Me podcast, and this is Heather, and I am super excited that you're here. You are going to hear some tips and some tricks and some ideas to help you live your happiest and healthiest self. I call it Back to Me because when you are taking care of yourself, back to me, then you can take better care of others, and we can all make the world a better place. This is Wellness Your Way, and I am super happy that you're here. Hello, my friend. Welcome. I hope you're having an outstanding day. It's, we're making our way through 2024, and we're learning our lessons along the way. We just keep learning them, and that's the best thing about this whole thing. And this is the Back to Me podcast, where we keep learning more lessons. Every single episode, I learn something new, or I try to bring something new that I've discovered. And today I have Holly with me. Hi, Holly. I didn't ask you how to pronounce your last name.
It's okay. It's Holly. It's Holly Bertone.
Bertone. Okay.
Yeah.
I was going to try it, but then I thought, instead of butchering it, I'll just ask.
That's okay.
So Holly is a midlife comeback coach, which I love that. That's amazing. Welcome.
Oh, thank you so much, Heather, for having me on the show. And I know when we talked, was it last week or so? I mean, I just felt this instant connection with you. Like you're one of those people, like, I feel like I just met and I feel like I've known my entire life. So I'm excited to be on the show and connect with you more and connect with your listeners.
That's awesome. I know there's some people that you meet online where you're like, we met in another life.
I know, right?
Right?
We probably did.
So the first question that I always ask everyone is, how do you become a comeback coach? Where did this journey come from? How did you get from there to here?
Yeah.
I'm always fascinated.
Yeah, and it's funny, and especially when you look at when I used to work for the FBI, and which is
That right
very,
there blows my mind.
yeah, it's very male dominated. It is like very masculine energy, very analytical. And now working, I'm a holistic health coach. I like to call myself a comeback coach. I mean, that's really what I do, is help women in their 40s and 50s come back home to themselves, and which is part of why I absolutely love your podcast and Back to Me.
Right?
And my whole thing is back to you, right? It's so awesome. And but the through line, I think, started when I was a little girl, like I don't know, maybe 10 years old. And I used to love doing jigsaw puzzles. And we had this huge dining room table, and I would take like 3 different 1,000-piece jigsaw puzzles, and I'd dump them out and I'd mix them up and I would put them back together. And that was just how my little brain worked back then, kind of nerd alert here. But then at the FBI, I came in post 9/11, and I did a lot of project management. And that was after the 9/11 Commission report and after the WMD Commission report. And the FBI had all of these disparate entities that didn't talk to each other, that didn't communicate, and that were duplicative and all of these things. So I went in one by one, helping to, create new offices, put together all of these different parts using that exact same skill set. And,
Puzzle building.
now,
I love it.
right. And now it's the exact same skill set. It's what happens. What I've seen is that in our 20s and our 30s, we chase after what people tell us is supposed to make us happy. What people
Oh my
tell us
God.
is supposed to be the perfect life. We chase after the successful career. We chase after the spouse, the kids, the white picket fence and the pug. I have a pug. So, of course, having a pug is, the great American dream. And but that's what we're told is supposed to create success. That is what we're told is supposed to make us happy. So this is what we chase. We may get some, most, all of them, and then what happens is that we're like, okay, I've got the thing. And we put our all as overachievers, as perfectionists, as people pleasers. We put our all into all of these different buckets of our lives. And we give and we give and we give. We give our all to our career, our all to our spouse, our all to our kids. And then, oh, by the way, when they say 2.5 kids, that 0.5 is actually your aging
Pug.
parent that no one told you you're supposed to take care of, and your pug, right? So we've got all of these pieces of ourselves that now basically they just hijacked us. They own us because we have given our power away to all of these pieces.
Well, I
And
imagine like you're giving 100% to all these things.
yeah,
That's adds up to like 500%. So
right.
there's nothing left for you.
Right. And what we find exactly, there's nothing left for us. And then over the course of, 10, 15 years, we realize, wow, my health got really pushed to the side. Like, and I can't tell you how many women I've talked to, they're like, yeah, I got to lose the baby weight, my baby's in high school. Like it's just we just let ourselves go because, and it not by any fault of their own. It's just we focus so much on making sure everyone else is happy, making sure everyone else is taken care of, and we forget about ourselves. So that's where I come in, is to be able to take all of these disparate pieces of ourselves and to put it back together to help women really come back home to themselves.
That's amazing. And what so I'm a total puzzle person too, but you just blew my mind. You mixed them all together. Oh my God, I'm gonna go do that.
You got to have a really big table to do it.
Yeah, no kidding. Small side note, I got this puzzle for Christmas recently that I had to get a piece of plywood because it was too big for the table. So
Ooh,
love
fun.
them. I love that you do puzzles, and I love that that makes so much sense that, of course, people are puzzles, and we got to figure out how all the parts work together, right? And I mean, I do it in my way, and you do it in your way. Yours is rocky, rocky.
Yes. Yes, the
It's
Rocky
like I
framework.
think I can't decide if it's like Sylvester Stallone or Rocky Shore. You know, stay away
It's
from the rocks.
modeled after Sylvester Stallone in the original movie circa 1976. So
Oh my gosh, right? Oh, Rocky, what a guy. So this is a process you take people through, your framework, and there's 8 steps, is that right?
5
No,
steps.
5 steps. I'm thinking of something else, 8, The Power of 8. I'm reading The Power of 8 right now. 5 steps, and can you tell us what the 5 steps are?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think before I get into the five
Yeah,
steps, I really want to talk about because I think it'll help set the stage, is that why so many women struggle. I mean, I know not that what I just talked about is enough, but what
right.
happens is that we get to this place where we want to make the change in our life. And the framework, originally I did it with my own health and then realized, oh, it works for, my clients, my students. And then I realized I got a divorce. I'm like, wow, it works. So it works for pretty much everything in life, right? So my focus is
You
as a
love it.
holistic health coach, but the framework works for everything. But what I found is that when we're in this place and we come to this place of, I want to make a change, and typically what happens is that when we're in that place, it doesn't even have to be rock bottom. It can just be everyday life, but we're burned out, we're stressed out, we're at a place where there's a lot of despair, maybe a lot of resentment, a lot of anxiety, a lot of frustration. Your future becomes what you feed it. So if we're starting from that place of all of these colorful emotions, we're creating our future self from that place of all these colorful emotions. And our future is going to look just like where we currently are. So
Right.
that's why we make the progress. And then we're like, a week later, we're like, okay, yeah, I'm back to where I am. So that's a really big, it's a really big factor to think about in terms of kind of going through this process and where we start. And why I see so many women, whether it's the yo-yo dieting or just constantly burning the candle at both ends and living in burnout, it's our relationship with stress. Like the stress is never going to go away. I mean, over time, at some point, it's going to get worse and worse and worse and worse, and then it's going to get better, and then we're kind of heading out.
Everything
So,
goes up and down, up and down, up
right,
and down, right? That's
right.
life.
So yeah, so it's our relationship with stress. It's not the fact of I need to get rid of it. It's changing our relationship and not letting that stress hijack your day. Like you're anxious, you ruminate about the thing, you get a horrible night's sleep, you wake up and you're like, oh, well, I'm not going to exercise today because, quote unquote, my anxiety or my insomnia kept me up all night. Well,
Yeah.
now that anxiety, that insomnia has completely hijacked your day. So it's not a matter of like we have to get rid of that tether, and that is why I created the Rocky framework, because those first two steps are the two steps that no one talks about, but I think are absolutely critical. And I want to go through all five, but I just wanted to set the framework
Okay. Oh,
for that.
it's super helpful. Thank you.
Yeah, yeah. So R is what I call rear view mirror. And that is when we make peace and forgiveness with our past. And I think so often, we can't go into the DeLorean and change our past. And so often we live and we view our past. We carry these emotions, we carry the trauma, we carry the guilt, we carry the shame. And it's breaking that tether of that negative charge and viewing our past from a place of love and compassion, viewing our past from a place of forgiveness, and forgiveness to yourself and forgiveness to others. And when I say forgiveness to others, I'm not talking about letting them off the hook. I'm not talking about saying bad things that people do are okay. What I'm saying is that you have broken that tether that is connected to that negative charge to that event, and you have created inner peace with the event. And
And you're
that's
right. I
what's
don't
most
think anybody
important.
talks about that,
Yeah,
like, um, recognizing what has happened to you before and how it's brought you here, which isn't where you want to be.
right.
Because I mean, most coach things that you read, it's all forward looking. We don't look back. We look forward. We look forward.
Right.
But if you don't unpack at least a little bit,
Yeah.
like not from a psychology point of view, but from a recognizing point of
Yeah.
view, then you do set yourself up quite often for failure,
Yeah. And
right?
it's
That's amazing.
it's different than therapy, it's
Mhm.
it's peeling back the onion layer, and I like to say it's removing the sludge like a clogged drain.
Right.
And here's the thing too is, and I think too, and especially as women and especially as girls growing up, we're told that we're the pretty one or we're the smart one
Not
or
both.
or the good for nothing one.
Right.
And it's not that that's the only story that we carry, but that is a big story that we carry. So, and let's say we gain weight and our validation is as the pretty one, right? Well, now I don't have value because I'm not pretty. Or let's say that validation comes from our career. Well, let's say maybe I decided to take a break and raise my kids, or maybe I didn't get the promotion, or I didn't get into the job I want, or I didn't get into grad school. Well, now we have this validation as the smart one. So we're not getting validated from that. Right. So we've got these stories that we also need to unpack and to begin to make that shift from that external validation to that internal validation. That internal validation is a whole journey in and of itself.
Right.
So that is rear view mirror, is
Step
making
one.
peace and forgiveness. We're at step one, right? And here's what's crazy. And I know, Heather, I know you're going to appreciate this, is that, like you said, like so often we start from go. And I've had so many people like, Holly, you're really ballsy as a coach to go there first. Because so often we want the big wins and we want the quick fix. And I was like, no, like if we want this to be sustainable, like it's going to be a journey.
Yeah.
And if you want it to stick, you got to do it right. And this is the hard stuff. But once that hard stuff, like it's easy from here on out. So,
And the first, I mean, you always say the first step is always the hardest. So,
yep.
taking the step to do something, but your first step is like, thank goodness you have a coach with you. Right? That's why we're
Yeah.
here,
That's
because
why
that first
we're
step is
here.
really hard.
It is. It
So
is.
now it's
Yes.
all downhill.
Yeah. Well, one more before we get on. Okay. The second step
Okay.
is not as painful, but so the second step is own your ship with a P, like a boat, keeping it G-rated. So we've got R is rear view mirror, O is own your ship with a P, and this is all about responsibility. And responsibility is your ability to respond. Responsibility is the difference between, cause and effect. And responsibility is having the agency over your life. And I'll give you a good example of this. So I was diagnosed with breast cancer on my 39th birthday. And my very first appointment with the doctor, she put her hand on my knee. And I'm like 39, right? Like only old women get breast cancer. Like what the heck? Like, yeah,
Right.
last week I was out racing a mountain bike and getting a medal around my neck. Like, how did this even happen? And she put her hand on my knee and she said in this gentle voice, lightning struck. And at the time, I needed to hear that. Um, I'm like, how could this even happen? And I do believe she's well meaning. And I absolutely do not agree with any kind of victim shaming. But at the same time, I also think that our doctors can do better. And we
Right.
can have conversations about lifestyle factors, about nutrition factors, about past trauma, and not just say, poof, cancer's ringing the doorbell like DoorDash, like, here you go, leaving it on the
Right.
doorstep,
I didn't
and
order it.
right. Like, but it was 7 years that
Wow.
I lived in victim mode because I blamed this external factor called lightning struck. And I didn't realize that things like, oh, I don't know, drinking a 6-pack of Coca-Cola a day, living on sugar, probably 95% of my diet was ultra processed foods. And by ultra processed foods, I mean foods with more than, processed foods with more than 5 ingredients that aren't real food. Living a completely stress filled, adrenaline junkie lifestyle, not dealing with past traumas, environmental toxins, like you name it. I could give you a list of 50 things.
Right.
And again, this isn't from a place of blame or shame. This is from a place of education. This is from a place of, we did the best that we could. Back to the very first one we talked about. We did the best that we could with what we had, with the resources that
If
we
you don't
have.
if you don't know, then
Right.
you can't be angry with yourself,
Right.
right?
Right. And I thought, like, I was 110 pounds. I raced mountain bikes. I would stand on a podium and get a medal around my neck. And I thought that I was healthy. Like, I thought being thin and athletic equals health. So, there is a huge disconnect with just kind of how society is and what we're taught. So responsibility is saying, you know what? From here on out, I have agency in my own life, and it's a decision. And when we make a decision, we go to one place and we break free of the other. And that's what responsibility is. It is simply the ability to respond and saying, I can respond in this way. From here on out, I can make better decisions. So
Right.
that is O.
Oh,
Okay. Yeah.
nice. Okay.
Okay. C, and we'll go
Now
a
it's
little fast.
easier, right?
Now we get easier. Yeah. So we could go a little faster. Those are
No,
the
we
two I
don't. There's
really
no
like to
race. It's not
focus
a
on.
race.
But C is create your future self. This is the fun part. This is the visualization and the manifesting and the goal setting
Right.
and the habit stacking, and what do you want your future self to look like? And I think, you could think of a good example is like a lottery winners, right? And how so many lottery winners, they win all this money and then a year later they're broke. Like
Yeah.
their set point, their identity is at that level of not having money. So they get it and they don't have that identity that matches. And I think that's so important with our health as well, is that to have that lens, to have that identity of being that healthy person. And what does that healthy person do? How does that healthy person think? And, so for example, I moved a year and a half ago when I got divorced. I moved from right outside of Washington, D.C. to now I'm literally in the middle of nowhere. And it is really difficult to find good quality organic food and
Oh,
produce. And it's also very difficult to find restaurants that have healthier options. But I'm not changing who I am just because of where I live. I'm figuring it out. That is
right.
the identity of a healthy person. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So I with between breast cancer, autoimmune disease, debilitating chronic fatigue, I mean, it was what, 10, 12 years of my life that that sickness owned me, and I
Right.
know more. So I no longer have that identity. I have the identity of someone who is healthy, and the identity creates those habits and creates the actions. So, they talk about, oh, well, you should, wear your gym clothes to bed if you want to wake up and go to the gym in the morning. And I was like, well, yeah, but if it's raining and you don't want to go, it doesn't matter what you're wearing.
Not
You're
at
still
all.
not going to want to go,
The
you
bed
know?
is still comfy and cozy. Thanks.
Right, right. And I mean, how many women really want to wear a sports bra to bed? Like,
No,
ugh,
I don't think so. And
not happening.
it's bad for your lymph
It's
circulation and
right,
your breast
right,
tissue. Come on, people.
right. So yeah. So anyway, so it's a lot more than just the habits. It's also, the identity, the actions, and kind of putting that together. And then so we've got our rear view mirror. O is own your ship with a P. C is create your future self. V is or C, sorry,
Okay.
K. K is keep the vision, not the view. I was thinking the V. K is keep the vision, not the view. Now, here's what happens 100% of the time. Life is going to hijack whatever the best plans are that you have. And it's always going to hijack it at the worst possible time,
Absolutely.
100% of the time. So, what keep the vision, not the view is about is to be able to kind of keep keep the big picture in mind. And again, back to kind of that identity is that you're going to want to show up like the person who does this, like the person who is healthier, like the person who eats healthier, like the person who is, you know what, it's raining outside, so I'm just going to walk around my house. Oh, well, I only live in 1,000 square feet, so I'm just, gonna walk around my house, right? Like there's no excuses. It just, you figure out a way and it gets done, right?
Right.
So regardless of what obstacles come. And then why is really what it's all about, is coming back home to you. And you think of the 80s movie montage and that 3 minutes, and Jennifer Beals is pulling up her leg warmers and the Karate Kids painting the fence, and they go through this 3 minutes and they got the music and it's pumping, and and they come out on the other side, and they haven't even gone through the challenge yet, and they're a whole different person, and they're showing up with a whole different energy. And
Right.
that's what this is about, like circa Wizard of Oz. Like we've had it inside of us this whole time. And that's what it's all about, is coming back home to you, to that place of that, that sparkle and the authenticity and the confidence and the radiance and that real true version of you, not the version of you that you're like, I just want my old life back. Do you
No, you don't.
really? Really? Or
Yeah.
is you just kind of want a you just dot 2.0, a little bit better?
Right. And I
So,
think
yeah.
people who go into the work, like if they're going to go into the work, they've recognized, I talk about, decision making is you have to be aware that you want something different. So when you become aware of that, you can't unsee it, right?
Mhm.
You you can decide to stay there, but if you wanted something different, why would you ever make that decision? Or
Right.
and then there's the stories that come up, which it's the hard work is, well, I always fail. I've tried before. But I think I love that you add on what do you call it? What's O?
Own your ship with a P.
Own your ship. I call it personal integrity. So
Mm,
if
mhm.
you um, don't take ownership for your life, whether you like how it looks or not, then you're out of personal integrity because you are the person who says yes or no to things. And I mean, I hear a lot, not only from clients, from people, I can't because, well, you can't
Right.
because you can decide something different. Or if you do have to do that thing, you can still do it with your own integrity. Like, I mean, you don't have to do it the way it's presented. And I like when we reach this age, I have to tell you, I love being out of 20s and 30s were great, but I love when we get here and go, wait a minute, I don't actually want that.
Right.
Right? So
Yeah.
powerful. That's so powerful to say,
Yeah.
wait, I ticked the boxes. That actually, I've just realized that's not what I want. I'm
Yeah.
returning it to the store.
Yeah. And I also say it, especially like I'm not dating yet. It's been a year and a half, and I was like, oh, I'll know when I'm ready. But at whatever point I'm ready, I was like, it is going to look totally different.
Right?
Yeah.
I think my audience knows I'm on my third husband. And each time I came to a realization where I was like, "Oh, actually this isn't right." You know, it's not you, it's me.
Yeah.
I've changed, I've grown, I'm going in a different direction. Do you want to come? No? Okay,
Yeah.
bye.
Yeah.
But you eventually get to that perfect place that's right for you, partnered or unpartnered,
Yeah.
right? It doesn't matter because that's not what defines us. The only person we spend our life with is us.
Right.
Um, and so for people, so for you have a podcast about this, right?
I do.
Of course you do. I love podcasts. Now remind me because I can't remember off the top of my head. What's your podcast called?
Yeah. So I have two. So
Two.
I've got, yeah. So
Overachiever.
well, one is public and then the other one is private. So which one do you want me to talk
Oh,
about?
both. I
Okay.
choose.
Yeah. So the public one is called Your Comeback Story. So Apple, Spotify, all the good things. But I also have a private podcast that is called Your Comeback Experience, and it goes a total deep dive, even more than what we talked about today, into the entire Rocky framework. And there's a bonus episode, and there's like a companion PDF. So there's some things that you don't actually get
Wow.
on the regular your podcast. And yeah, so it's really to help create that framework to get more energy and wake up with more energy and start losing the weight and really create that framework and that blueprint. In the last episode, you actually get an entire assessment that you can go through to kind of see, okay, where am I at and where do I want to go?
That's amazing. And don't
Yeah.
worry, everybody, because the links are in the show notes. So
Yeah.
you can get everything that you want from Holly.
And I was going to say
From
it's a super easy, it's podcastholly.com. So it's a super
there you go.
easy to remember, podcastholly.com. Yeah.
That's brilliant. Um, because sometimes podcasts are hard to find. There's so many podcasts these days. I have so many that I've subscribed to that it will take my whole life to listen to them all. My whole life. Um,
Mm.
the interesting thing that I was contemplating has left my head,
Oh,
of
okay.
course. It went out the side door because you had said something. I'm like, oh, Oh, there it
And
goes.
there it
It'll come
goes.
back to me.
Could I talk about the divorce for a second?
Yeah, absolutely.
So I used this framework to heal myself, to keep it
Right.
sustainable, to help my clients achieve healthier lives. And I got to use the framework on my divorce. I was like, you know what? Let's see if it works on a divorce. And I was able to create what I like to call it a no conflict divorce. It was, it was how I showed up was helping, my ex show up in a different place. So, there wasn't, you hear so often with divorce, there's a lot of like, revenge and resentment and anger and bitterness and all of these colorful emotions. And it was still divorce. It was still, an event, right? Lots of colorful emotions, but it wasn't any of that. It was
That's so
just
good.
going through the natural kind of separation grieving process. And you know how, and we talked about stress. We didn't even get into inflammation, which I've got an entire whole like 90-minute training on
That's like
that,
a
but
book. That's a
that's right, a
book.
book, right? So, but so much of this chronic stress causes inflammation, which then, creates all these habits and helps us to use food as comfort and all of this stuff, right? So it just keeps the cycle, perpetuating. But then stress causes this inflammation. And then typically when we have some kind of stressful event, on the other side of it, we get sick. Like I used to think
Right.
back to finals in college, and I would always come home and just that next week I would be sick, right? From all of the stress after
Or
finals.
when people go on vacation, right?
Right. And they come back, they're
You've
like, "How did I get sick? I was on vacation." It was
because
good
you
stress.
because you pressed pause on the stress. Okay, now it's
Yeah.
time to get sick.
Yeah. But yeah, that entire time during the, when the divorce, it was thermonuclear before it was actually called a divorce, and then the separation and then the move and all of the things and starting over, I didn't get sick once. And
Wow.
this is coming from someone, who has a history with autoimmune disease and debilitating chronic fatigue. And I mean, yeah, there were days that I was more tired than others, but it wasn't to a point of like, I just kept on, like, I toned it down a bit, but I just was able to function like a normal human being every single day. And I didn't get sick
That's so
once.
good.
So it's
And
not
you're
just like saying, like, oh, I had this great divorce. It's my body proved it. My body
right.
proved that I was able to go through this divorce with a totally different relationship with stress.
And now that you're saying, like, we talked a lot about, healthy eating, but that framework would work for anything, right?
Yeah.
Relationships, fitness, eating, life,
Yeah.
financial,
Everything.
like because I talk about um, become physical. Uh, mine spells become body, emotion, community, occupation, money, and engagement. Like
Love
anything
it.
in there is even community, like your relationships of any
Yep.
kind. Yeah, your emotional health, like how are you feeling on a regular basis and acknowledging how you feel because
Right.
sometimes sometimes the people that we go to depend on are just like, oh, get over it, or it'll be fine. That's not what you need process time. And your first two steps, as much as they don't sound like a party, I think that they help people through those steps that people skip over. So that's
Yeah.
brilliant.
And
My
and
gosh.
here's the thing too, is like you know, we've just been programmed. Like, I don't know who came up with this, but it just needs to go away. That things like symptoms and things like quote unquote, colorful emotions, we call them bad, right?
Right.
They're not bad. It's our body talking to us. It's our body, like our body doesn't have a language or it doesn't speak English, right? It doesn't even speak pig Latin. It's just like, hello, hello. There's a migraine, there's a rash, there's IBS, there's, all of this stuff and weight gain and brain fog and all of these symptoms, and it's like, okay, the body's trying to tell you something. We don't know first of all that that's a language. We
Right.
just try to push it or get a pill and forget about it. We don't realize that that's a language of our body saying something's not quite right. and let's figure out how to fix it. And then we get these emotions. We get anger and jealousy and shame and frustration and anxiety and all of these colorful emotions. And we're told, oh, no, 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 they're bad. They're bad. No, they're speaking a language. Like, what is
Right.
going on that I'm having such a big reaction right now? Why am I triggered? What is going on? What is that wound that's not healed yet? What can I put a mirror up? What's going on? Right? Let's take
Right.
a look at this. Anxiety, hello. Let's have a conversation. What are you here to teach me? So,
Right.
so it's also the ability to just look at what people traditionally call bad and like, no, it's actually good. It's our body having a language, our body communicating with us.
And ignoring them just either amplifies them, turns them
Yes.
into something we don't want even more. But
Right.
it's so fascinating that we're talking about this. I was actually listening to another podcast yesterday called The Naughty Shaman, and she tells stories. She's brilliant. She's brilliant in her storytelling, and she was talking about emotions, and she was talking about the ones that people tend to try to repress or ignore, or they don't want to see them. They're just like, get rid of that. But she said each of those is a gift for you. And it's understanding the gift of what that particular emotion that's coming up is. And the one that I'm remembering is she was like, fear is often a fear of loss, like you're going to lose something, whether it's, status or money, like however fear shows up. It doesn't always even necessarily relate to the thing you're afraid of. It's just like you've got this weird fear inside of you. But it's so interesting that she turned these bad emotions into gifts, which is such a good way to think of it when you're trying to recognize that it's there and not be mean to yourself that it's
Yeah.
there. And like you said, why is this here? What is this trying to tell me? That's so powerful a thing to have. And it allows you to step into that place of owning your ship.
Yeah. With the P.
With a P. Ship with a P. That's awesome. Oh my gosh, I love this program. It's so exciting. Friends on Podcast Land, that I'm going to go download that thing, right? I'm so checking out the private podcast. Before we say farewell to Holly, because I want to be respectful of time and all these things, do you have a final word of wisdom for us? Or two or
Mm.
three or 10?
Oh goodness. We could talk for hours.
I know.
Right?
I know.
I I really like to leave when I send emails out in my newsletter and then on Instagram. By the way, at holly.bertone, come hang out on Instagram, say hello.
Yeah.
I always like to leave with a phrase, a sentence that I needed to hear at a critical point in my life that I did not hear. And I was like, you know what? If I needed to hear this, then I'm sure other people need to hear this too. So I will leave you with this is that sorry, I just got a little emotional.
I know. I'm like, sweep away the emotions. It's
Yeah,
okay.
you can do this. I believe in you.
See, what is
I
that
get a
emotion
little
trying to tell
goosies.
you, right?
Oh, little
That emotion
goosies.
is telling you
Oh,
that you are loved and supported
yes.
no matter where
Yes.
you are, right? That's beautiful. Oh my gosh. Thank you so much, Holly. It's been so
Oh,
nice
thank you so
talking to
much,
you
Heather.
again.
Yeah.
Yes, we could talk for hours. But my friends in podcast land, if you want more Holly, you're going to have to go over and see her. It's all in the show notes. Holly Bertone, clickety click, Bob a trick. Go over and visit and share this with your friends, because what was your final words? You got this.
You can do
Say it again.
this.
You
You
can
can
do
do
this.
this. I believe in you.
Send this to your friend who needs to hear that as well. Thank you, Holly. So nice to talk to you. Podcast land. Have an amazing day. Hi, my friend. Thanks so much for listening to this entire podcast. If you found it useful and you're like me and you like helping others, please feel free to share this. Just give it a like, give it a comment. If you found something useful in it, there's a chance that someone else will find something useful as well. Also, if you have any questions at all, I can absolutely help, and I would love to help. You can email me at heather@prosperityflowcoaching.com. If you want more of this awesome content, you can follow me on Instagram, Heather Stewart Coaching. You can follow me on Facebook, Prosperity Flow Coaching. And I have a personal request. I want to help as many people as I can with these podcasts. And if you could give me a review, hopefully a good one, if you could share, if you could send this out into the world, I would truly appreciate it. I hope you have an amazing day, and I hope that you find your way to wellness by getting back to me. Take care, my friend.